We've got to stop doing intros and talking to birds and helicopters and people that are driving by here on the car path staring at me like I'm some sort of caged animal. And we just got to get to work. This is what we call the belt buckle box drill. It's a drill that I designed personally. And I know a lot of you keyboard warriors at home are going to probably say that, hey, this has been done before. If it has, that's fine. But this is a great drill that's going to help you simplify the way that you move your lower body in the golf swing. It's going to help you overcome a lot of the catastrophic faults like early extension or sliding of the hips or spinning out. This is going to help you dial it in perfectly. Now, if you caught last week's video, you saw that we worked on weight shift. You saw that I worked on simplifying the way that you moved your body in space by allowing your head to move. If you have not yet seen that video, do me a big favor. I'm going to put it up on the screen now, and I'm going to put a link in the description below. Go watch that video first. Come back, because you want to have that good baseline movement in place before you start taking on today's drill. Today's drill is going to be a pretty serious drill here. This is a drill that's going to help you start freeing up your mind and freeing up your body so that you can move like the best men and women in the world, and you can start moving the golf club in space a whole lot faster. If you want speed in the golf swing, you got to use the ground. If you want speed and power in the golf swing, you got to use your legs and your hips properly and in the right sequence. Welcome to the belt buckle box drill. Let's get to work. This drill is basically a simplified way for you to keep your center of mass further away from the golf ball than where it was at address through the point of contact. That's right. When you watch the best men and women in the world, if you study their golf swings, if you look at some of the gears models that we've had published, we can see that the center of mass moves a slight amount off the golf ball. We see that it moves a substantial amount in front of the golf ball on the way down. But we also notice that the center of mass is further away from the golf ball at the point of contact than where it was at address. That's what this drill is going to teach you to do. Now, the way that I'm going to have this drill set up is I've got two alignment sticks that are back on the ground here, but I've got one out for visual reference here for you. And I have 3 pieces of painter's tape on here. And the way that I've marked it is that this middle one that's a little bit wider is going to be an indicator as to where my belt buckle is. The ones that are on the sides of it are going to be an indicator as to where my hip sockets are. Now, a good way for you to be able to set this up on your own is find the belt loops on the front of your pants and find your belt buckle and mark the belt buckle first, and then find the belt loop on each side of your pants and put the piece of tape in that area. Or you can use a marker or whatever you want to use. If you don't wear pants that have the need for a belt or a belt buckle, like you're wearing stretchy pants or gym shorts or whatever you're wearing, then what you can simply do is figure out where your belt buckle would be, put a marker there, and then find the pointy pelvic bone on the front of your body, and just about 2 finger widths inside of that is going to be right around where the hip socket is. Now, this is set up for reference. This doesn't need to be perfect. It's just kind of the rough guesstimate, okay? When we start rocking and rolling here, there's going to be some movement that you're going to be trying to tie into. Now, the way that I want you to think about the hips working in the golf swing, if I were to take this alignment stick and I were to bend it kind of in a U back towards me, the way the hips are going to work in the swing is they're very dynamic. They're going to work kind of in this U-shaped movement. And if you kind of follow along with those blue dots that are on the alignment stick, you're going to see that they move both in a horizontal sense, in a rotational sense, and a vertical sense. Those are the 3 forces that take place in the golf swing. You've heard me say it before. The 3 forces are horizontal, rotational or torque, and vertical forces. So you're going to learn how to keep your center of mass back, and you're going to learn how to balance those 3 forces perfectly in your golf swing just with one simple little drill. I would call that a slam dunk, a home run, a turkey. That's what they call it in bowling if you get 3 strikes in a row. Okay, so now that I've shown you how to get your alignment stick set up and showed you exactly how the hips are moving in the golf swing, let's show you how to work the drill. That's what we're here for, right? Now, I want you to remember 110% across the board. Under no circumstance is this drill set up in a way where you're supposed to become very technically minded to where you can't move. This drill is designed to create some good visuals, some good visual cues. This drill is designed to take those visual cues and start turning it into some feels and then turn it into movement. And if you can start creating good movement and you're back checking things on camera and you're doing adequate numbers of reps, then you're going to start to see that, hey, this movement becomes a piece of cake. Now, how I have the drill set up here is I have 2 alignment sticks now marked exactly the same way. This first stick, this red stick that's closest to you, when I stand on it, is going to be directly underneath the ball of my foot. The back line, this green line, is going to be about a club head width away from it. It's parallel to it, and it's going to be more or less kind of underneath where you have the tied knot in your shoelaces. Now, I know a lot of you at home are going to be probably pretty uncomfortable standing on some alignment sticks, and I get that. I understand that. You can certainly do this drill with taking some turf marking paint or some Dr. Scholl's foot spray, or you can even take a piece of tape and lay it on the ground if that's more comfortable for you. Okay, that's totally fine. Again, remember the purpose of this drill is to create some good visuals that you're going to turn into movement. Now, when I stand on these lines, you're going to notice that I'm about 1.5 to 2 inches wider than where the center of my hip sockets are on both sides. This is a great way for a lot of you at home to start getting the stance width agenda checked off the list, making sure that you're not having to dance around to find that proper stance width. So about 1.5 to 2 inches out on each side is going to be your stock stance width here. I also have a ball teed up for a reference point here today as I start to go through the drill. And the reason why I'm using a tee is so I don't have to be moving all around and move the camera with you, right? Now, what I want you to think about here is that this front line, this red line, is going to be your horizontal line. The back line is going to be your rotational line. Okay, now what I want you to do here is I've got a 7-iron here today, and I'm just going to go ahead and stand up here for a second, and I'm going to put the club head in the ground, and I'm going to put the butt end of the club in my belt buckle here. And I'm just going to move the butt end of the club back and forth so it's in line with where the center of my hip socket was on the trail side and my lead side. It's going to feel like a ton of movement. It's going to feel like you're sliding or swaying all over the place. Why? Well, because you are sliding and swaying all over the place. What you want to remember is that we don't just use horizontal movement in the swing. In fact, we use small amounts of it going back, large amounts of it going forward, but we blend that with rotational force and vertical force. What we do in order to find that proper blend is we're going to use this back line to start rotating the belt buckle and getting it over the top of the green line to know that we've created that sort of dynamic blend. That's the point of this drill. Now, what you're going to find when we start to go through this drill is I'm going to use this terminology that's a lot of you at home might find it to be fancy, and it's not really that fancy of a term. When you hear me use the term neutral joint alignment, okay, all that really is if you were to take all of the skin and fat off my body, and I was just standing here as a big bag of bones, when I get the center of my knee, when I get the center of my ankle, the center of my knee, and the center of my hip socket all stacked right on top of one another, that's what we call neutral joint alignment. Now, at impact, that's what you're trying to achieve. During your takeaway and your backswing, you're actually going to be slightly inside of that. So when we start adding this movement, you're going to hear me say, when you start to shift and turn to your trail side, I want the belt buckle to come to the inside part of where your trail hip socket is. And you're turning it back and staying on the inside portion of where the trail hip socket is on the rotational line. Then in the downswing, you're going to see that I'm going to ask you to get your belt buckle all the way in front of where the lead hip socket was at impact in order to get yourself into neutral. So let's go ahead and start working through this a little bit now. So again, I'm about 1.5 inches out on both sides. My belt buckle is not going to get all the way on top of this line like it would on the lead side. It's just going to work just inside of it. Okay, from here, keep the belt buckle on top of this green line, not going in towards the red line at all. Okay, and then pull it back and away after it gets on top of the lead hip socket. So drill this a few times, pull it back. To a lot of you at home, it's going to look and feel like a much smaller movement than what we see happening in the golf swing. That's right. So many of you at home get all of this big extra movement that you don't really need to have in the golf swing. We make golf swings short, tight, and concise on purpose because all of that freedom of movement, yes, it looks elegant, but what it's doing is it's making it harder for you to get things matched up properly in your downswing, and it's also making it harder for you to be able to remove timing variables in the golf swing. The modern day golf swing is a beautiful thing. It's short, tight, compact, and put together. And if you do it properly, it's a whole lot safer than a lot of that big, robust movement that we saw back in the early 80s. Okay? So now once you start creating that good visual in your brain and that feel, okay, I'm gonna get the ball out of here and I'm gonna start making some swings. Okay, so belt buckle is gonna start to move and turn, staying back on top of the green line. Trying to keep the belt buckle back on top of that green line as it's shifting, and as it gets to that lead hip socket line, I'm pulling it back and away to help move that left hip into a 45-degree open position and move that lead leg into a passively straight position. What you should look for on camera to see if you're doing it right is you should be in neutral joint alignment. So go ahead and take your setup. Okay, so my belt buckle is going to start to shift to the inside part and turn, staying back on top of the green line. So you're going to see that I'm going to start picking up the pace here ever so slightly, right? This is how I want you to be able to practice. What you're noticing is now I'm starting to move faster and faster and faster. I'm taking these visuals, I'm being aware of them, but I'm starting to create movement. Creating the movement into and through positions is what this is all about. Once you start getting it to a point where you're at 70 to 80% of your normal speed, and you know that these movements are being done accurately because you're back checking things on camera, then start trying to introduce the golf ball back to the mix. When the golf ball comes back in the mix, I don't care where it goes at first. I care about you staying committed to the movements. Get committed to the movements, practice it properly, let the golf ball get in the way of those, and start getting success the proper way here. So we're getting ready to hit some golf balls, and I will tell you that it's probably beneficial for a lot of you to hit it off a small tee so you're not having to move your reference points all over the place. It's not needed, but it may make the practice sessions a little bit smoother for you. I just want you to watch now that I've taught you how to do the drill, how I'm going to practice this. Every single practice session needs to be centered around the idea that you're going out there trying to get a good, solid number of reps done. Somewhere between 100 to 150 reps is a good number. How you space out your practice session is very dependent on the time that you have available to you. Don't go out there and try to do this new movement with 150 golf balls. Go out there with 25 golf balls and really start getting yourself connected to the new movement, and you'll be able to see really quickly if this is a drill that's designed for you at home. Now, watch how I practice this. Move the ball out of the way. Okay, I'm gonna start real small, trying to get really connected to the visual. Okay, so follow me again. So the hip socket, the belt buckle is going to move back towards the trail hip onto the inside portion of it. Okay, it's now on top of the green line. It's going to start shifting, but staying on top of the green line all the way to the point where it's now on top of the hip socket where it was at address. Once it gets there, you're pulling it back and away, and now you're in neutral joint alignment, ready for a party. You just learned the whole load process and what the lower body is actually doing in the golf swing, and now you've started to turn it into movement. Have some fun with this drill and practice it properly. Okay? So you know what I find the really big problem with amateur golfers not getting better at the game of golf is I find that so many of you get lost in the abyss of golf instruction. It's never ending. There's so much that's available to you. And so many of you find that message that really resonates with you. And unfortunately, that's what gets you into trouble in the first place, because the big mistake that a lot of you at home make that you don't realize is that you work on the wrong things at the wrong time. There's a very specific order in which you have to work through things in order to be successful. And I know a lot of you at home quantify your success through two metrics and two metrics only. How you're hitting the golf ball in that current moment, and are your scores in your handicap coming down? That's exactly how you quantify your success. What we do at My Golf DNA is we help you with understanding who you are as a golfer. We help you work on the things that are pertinent to you in your golf game right away. We design a plan for you and we help you follow through on that plan from beginning to end. That's the most important part. You need support and you need to work on the things that are pertinent to you in your game. Come join us at My Golf DNA. Sit through the consult with me. You'll spend 20 to 30 minutes with me alone before you start the processes. Everybody loves this part of the process. Sitting down with me after I look at your golf swings and look at the history of your golf is a very important part of the process. As much as I learn about you and as much as I get to hear how you like to do things and what goes on in your world, helps design your practice program, helps design your plan. And the people that have gone through it so far are getting amazing success. Don't go out there and start working on cookie cutter golf instruction anymore. Work on things that are for you. Work on getting better at the game of golf and have support every single step of the way. Here's to playing your best golf.